Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, well, we're embarking on a journey, really, into a masterpiece that is just so much more than a beautiful painting.
Absolutely. It's one of those works that keeps revealing things.
Exactly. We're going to take a stack of sources, articles, research, our notes, and use them to truly unpack Peter Bruegel the Elder's Hunters in the Snow.
They're real classic.
It really is, and it's a piece of art that doesn't just hang on a museum wall.
Mm.
It feels like, well, a living historical document, a fascinating window into a specific, quite turbulent time.
Definitely turbulent. And it's such a remarkable blend of profound artistry and really stark reality.
So our mission for this deep dive isn't just about admiring its, undeniable beauty, although it is beautiful.
Oh, unquestionably.
It's more about unearthing its layers of meaning, its secrets, and its profound connections to history, to climate even, and to the enduring human condition.
Right. There's a lot going on beneath the surface.
What we want to understand is how this single painting manages to encapsulate so much about a really challenging era, about an artist's sheer genius, and maybe even the unfolding history of our planet's climate.
It's a tall order for one painting, but Bruegel manages it.
He does. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's jump right in. Let's start by properly introducing our subject. We're diving into Hunters in the Snow, or as it's known in Turkish, Avcılar Karda.
Interesting aside on the Turkish name.
Yes, and this is a stunning oil-on-oak panel masterpiece completed by Peter Bruegel the Elder. We're talking 1565.
A very specific moment in time.
It is, and it's a sizable work, too, 117 by 162 centimeters. It really feels like a window, almost, into another world.
The scale contributes to that feeling, definitely.
And it's one of the most celebrated, most visited pieces at the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna. It just draws you in, doesn't it? With all that intricate detail and the expansive winter scene.
It really does. But what's truly fascinating here is that Hunters in the Snow is far from a standalone piece. That's key.
Ah, right. I remember reading that. It's part of a set.
Exactly. It's actually part of a much larger, incredibly ambitious project by Bruegel. This painting is one of a monumental series, often referred to as the months, or sometimes the seasons.
Okay.
And this one, Hunters, specifically represents the harshness, but also the beauty of winter. It's commonly interpreted as covering the months of December and January.
The deep midwinter.
Precisely. And while only 5 of the original series have actually survived to this day.
Only 5. What are the others?
The others are Gloomy Day, Haymaking, The Harvesters, and The Return of the Herd. All masterpieces in their own right.
Wow. So we're missing some.
We are. But even from the ones we have, it's clear this series was groundbreaking, a kind of renewal of a much older tradition.
What tradition was that?
This was a medieval artistic practice known as the labors of the months. You often see them in illuminated manuscripts.
Ah, right. Depicting farm work and things changing through the year.
Exactly. Traditionally depicting the agricultural and seasonal tasks associated with each month. But Bruegel, he took this established tradition and just elevated it. Infused it with his unique perspective, a new level of realism, narrative depth, and that keen human observation he's so famous for.
So he wasn't just illustrating a calendar. He was completely reimagining it, almost turning it into a visual epic of the year.
That's a great way to put it, a visual epic. It's widely believed the original series might have actually spanned all 12 months.
All 12, imagine that.
A truly comprehensive visual calendar of the year, each panel a window into a specific slice of life. And within this grand cycle, Hunters in the Snow holds a really unique and significant position.
How so?
It acts as what some scholars call a frieze-like opening curtain.
An opening curtain, I like that.
Yeah. Imagine these paintings hung chronologically in a room. Hunters would be at the far left. It's almost inviting you, the viewer, into the stark beauty and, frankly, the often brutal realities of the winter season. It sets the tone for the entire cyclical narrative of the series.
That's a powerful image. Inviting us into this world. Who was the visionary then behind commissioning such an ambitious and, well, innovative series? Must have cost a fortune.
It certainly wasn't cheap. The patron was Nicholas Jongelink. He was a prominent Antwerp banker and a really significant art collector of his time.
A banker. Okay, makes sense.
And his suburban residence wasn't just a house. Sources describe it as a cultural hearth, a vibrant center that really brought the sophisticated Renaissance concept of the studiolo to Northern Europe.
A studiolo, now, for those unfamiliar, What exactly was that? I know it implies something more than just a simple study, right?
You're absolutely right. Much more than a study. A studiola was a private cabinet or study, a room where a wealthy patron could display and, importantly, contemplate their prized art and intellectual collections, books, artifacts, paintings.
So like a personal museum almost, a thinking space.
Kind of, yes. Think of it as a personalized intellectual sanctuary.
Yeah.
It was a true symbol of Renaissance humanism and, of course, wealth. It reflected the patrons' cultivated taste, their learning, their status.
Right, the curated world.
Exactly. And Jongelink was clearly a man of significant means and discerning taste. He ordered at least 16 paintings from Bruegel in total.
16. That's a serious commitment.
It really indicates a deep appreciation for Bruegel's talent and vision. And the Month series in particular seems to have been the absolute culmination of this extensive commission, a huge investment in Bruegel's genius.
And how they were displayed, you said that mattered.
Oh, profoundly. The intended display absolutely influenced their format and composition. They were specifically planned to be hung as a frieze.
Like a continuous band.
Yes, in Jongelink's spacious dining room, likely positioned quite high up on the walls. This dictated their impressive size, roughly 1.1 by 1.6 meters, as you said, and crucially, it necessitated a high vantage point for the viewer.
So you'd be looking slightly up at them.
Probably, yes. And Bruegel had to conceive of the painting almost like a grand panorama because of that. This required him to dramatically reduce the scale of the human figures within the landscape.
So the landscape becomes dominant.
Precisely. This compositional choice masterfully emphasized the topographical diagonals, the sweep of the land, rather than the individual figures themselves. It's a brilliant design. It creates this optical path for your eye, drawing you from the immediate foreground, making you follow the hunter's weary gaze deep into that expansive, snow-covered valley.
It really pulls you in.
It's a masterful way to immerse you in the world he created, guiding your perception through the scene as if you're looking out from a high window yourself.
That's fascinating how the physical space, the dining room, shaped the art itself. It makes you think about how we see art today, doesn't it? Often in these sort of sterile, white cube museum spaces, rather than the specific, maybe domestic context they were originally intended for. Adds another layer.
It really does. Context is so important.
But let's shift focus now. Let's talk about the artist himself, Peter Bruegel, and the tumultuous world he lived in. Here's where it gets really interesting. I'm curious, how deeply did that chaotic world, the politics, the society, and as you mentioned, even the climate, how did that really seep into his art, transforming hunters in the snow from just a picturesque scene into almost a historical document?
Well, Bruegel's early training definitely set the stage for his unique vision. He apprenticed under Peter Koch van Elst in Antwerp. Coco was quite an influential painter and engraver himself.
Right, a solid grounding.
A very solid grounding. But it was Bruegel's transformative journey to Italy in 1552, actually just a year after Coca's death, that really marked a pivotal turning point for him.
The classic artist's trip south.
Exactly. But Bruegel's experience was maybe a bit different. There's this wonderful, almost mythical account from Karel van Mander's Schilderboek, his book on painters from 1604.
Oh yeah, what did he say?
He famously wrote that Bruegel, while in the Alps, swallowed up mountain sketches and then spewed them onto canvases.
Swallowed them up and spewed them out. That's vivid.
Isn't it? It perfectly captures Bruegel's unique method. He wasn't just copying geography. He was internalizing it, absorbing its essence, its rugged grandeur, and then recreating it later from memory and imagination, infused with his own artistic spirit.
So not photographic recall, but emotional and structural recall.
Precisely. And when he returned north, Bruegel made a very conscious artistic choice. Unlike many of his contemporaries who might have been tempted to idealize Renaissance anatomies or classical forms they'd seen in Italy.
Which was the fashion, right?
It was becoming the fashion, yes. But Bruegel preferred to blend the grotesque details that legacy inherited from Hieronymus Bosch, those fantastical, sometimes disturbing elements with the established northern landscape tradition.
Ah, so Bosch was an influence too.
A huge influence, especially early on. Bruegel wasn't really interested in idealized human forms. His focus was firmly on the human condition observed in everyday life, often featuring peasants, common folk.
Grounded in reality.
Exactly. This decision rooted his art firmly in the realities of his homeland and the lives of ordinary people.
So he deliberately turned away from those grand narratives of classical art to focus on the human experience in his own world, almost like an ethnographer with a paintbrush.
That's a very apt way to describe it, an ethnographer with a paintbrush. And those realities he observed were stark, The 1560s, the very decade Bruegel was creating this series, it was a period of immense socio-political upheaval in the Habsburg Netherlands.
Right, under Spanish rule.
Under Spanish rule, yes. It was a time rife with widespread unrest. You had escalating tax burdens imposed by the Spanish crown, growing Protestant opposition to Catholic rule, and these persistent simmering rumors of iconoclasm, the destruction of religious images.
Which did eventually erupt, didn't it?
It did, soon after this painting was finished. It was a society just simmering on the very brink of widespread rebellion and religious conflict, a really tense atmosphere.
And then the climate factor you mentioned.
Yes. Now, compounding all this social turmoil, there was also a profound climatic shift underway. This very period coincided with an intensification of what historians and climatologists now call the Little Ice Age.
The Little Ice Age. So not just a bad winter, but a longer trend.
Exactly. This wasn't just a slightly colder winter here or there. It was a sustained period of significantly lower average temperatures across much of Europe. It led to colder, longer winters, often less predictable summers, impacting harvests.
Wow. How bad did it get?
We have some chilling, vivid accounts that illustrate the severity. For example, a Brabant theologian named Johannes Molanus, he chronicled the winter of 1564-65, the very winter depicted in the painting. He described it as immeasurably violent.
Immeasurably violent. That's strong language.
It is. His writings describe birds literally freezing to death mid-flight and falling from the sky, and the poor losing noses and fingers to frostbite. Just imagine the daily struggle for survival under such relentless conditions, where merely staying warm and finding enough food was a constant, desperate battle.
That puts the painting in such a dramatically different light, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It moves way beyond just a picturesque scene. It becomes almost a stark record of extreme hardship.
Completely.
The artist isn't just an observer then, but almost a chronicler of a very challenging period. So this severe climate, these almost existential conditions, how did they truly transform Bruegel's winter landscapes? Did it change his whole approach?
I think it fundamentally transformed them. These were no longer just picturesque, idyllic scenes of nature like you might see earlier. Instead, Bruegel's winter landscapes became powerful, almost visceral depictions of existential threat. They underscore the harsh realities of survival for ordinary people.
So Hunters in the Snow isn't just beautiful, it's a profound statement.
It is a statement on human vulnerability in the face of an unforgiving natural world, and let's not forget a challenging social environment too. It highlights how deeply interconnected human life was with the environment, where a brutal winter like that could literally be a matter of life or death, not just some seasonal inconvenience we moan about today.
Right.
This painting becomes a powerful reflection of the daily struggle, but also the resilience required to navigate such a harsh climate.
It's incredible how much emotion and social commentary can be embedded in a landscape painting. But how did Bruegel actually do it?
Yeah.
How did he bring this vision to life on the canvas? What can the physical materials, the actual wooden paint, tell us about his incredible craftsmanship and maybe his studio practices? How did he achieve that depth and texture?
That's a great area to explore, and the physical materials themselves offer remarkable insights into Bruegel's meticulous process and, frankly, the high standards of the time. We can even accurately date the wood of the panel using dendrochronology.
Tree ring dating, right?
Exactly, tree ring dating. The youngest growth ring found on the Baltic oak panels of Hunters in the Snow dates to 1548.
1548, and he painted it in 1565.
Correct. This implies that the wood would have undergone at least 15 years of careful drying time before Bruegel even began painting on it.
15 years, just drawing.
Yes. This lengthy drying period was absolutely crucial. It significantly increased the high-quality support material's resistance to deformation, to warping. It ensured the longevity and stability of the masterpiece for centuries to come. They really knew their materials.
Yes, certainly did.
Yeah.
And the panel itself, how is it put together?
It's constructed with great care and precision. It consists of two wide boards joined together edge to edge with glue. Alongside these are narrower lamellae. Think of them as thin strips of wood also joined side by side to create the full surface.
Built like fine furniture.
In a way, yes. The front surface was then meticulously prepared. A ground layer made of goot skin glue mixed with chalk was applied. This provided a smooth, slightly absorbent base that was ideal for the subsequent paint layers.
The foundation.
Exactly. And over this ground, Bruegel would have applied a thin underdrawing, likely using a root dye-based brown ink, perhaps, to carefully outline his composition before starting with the paint.
So underneath all that gorgeous paint, there's a whole hidden world of his initial intentions, his first thoughts sketched out. And what do these underdrawings tell us? Can we see them now? Do they reveal anything about his process, or maybe even who might have helped him in the studio?
That's a great question. And modern scientific analysis, particularly the work done by the Inside Bruegel project using infrared reflectography images, IRR for short, has given us an incredible look beneath those paint layers.
Infrared, so it sees through the paint.
It allows us to see carbon-based underdrawings, yes. And what's truly fascinating is the insight it provides into Bruegel's precise studio practices. For the main figures, like the hunters themselves, the reflectography shows these bold, confident outlines, unhesitating, almost fluid strokes.
Suggesting his own hand.
It strongly suggests direct artistic intervention by Bruegel himself. These were elements he carefully planned and executed with his own hand, very assured.
Okay. But what about the smaller details?
Well, in contrast, the distant skaters and other smaller background details, they're rendered with much fainter, more freehand sketch lines.
Less defined.
Less defined, maybe quicker. This difference suggests the possibility of workshop assistance for these secondary or less prominent details. It gives us a rare and valuable glimpse into the potential division of labor within Bruegel's busy studio.
So he was clearly leading the vision, the master in charge, but maybe some elements could be filled in by skilled assistants following his design.
That's a very plausible interpretation, yes. It was common practice.
And his paint,
Yeah.
his palette, what was he using to get those amazing colors, especially that sense of cold?
As for his palette, Bruegel employed pigments that were pretty typical of a 16th century Flemish master, but his application, his technique, was nothing short of masterful. For the coarse textured white of the snow, creating that palpable sense of depth and freshness.
Yeah, you can almost feel the crunch.
Exactly. For that, he used lead white pigment, likely applied quite thickly in places.
Lead way, okay.
The sky, with its characteristic grayish turquoise tones, that was achieved using diluted azurite, a beautiful but sometimes problematic blue mineral pigment.
Azurite, and the browns and blacks.
The rich earth tones seen throughout the painting, the browns of the trees, the subtle variations in the ground were created with red and yellow ochres, umber, and various blacks derived from charcoal and bone black. Standard, but effective.
And the little details, the light on the ice.
Ah, yes. For the subtle shimmer and sparkle on the ice, he applied incredibly fine, almost delicate touches of lead tin yellow, a bright, stable yellow pigment.
Lead tin yellow, got it.
And for that delicate bluish luminescence you sometimes see maybe on the sled tracks or where the ice is thicker, small amounts of smalt pigment, which is ground cobalt glass with its characteristic low cobalt content, were strategically used to suggest that cold light reflecting off the ice.
It's astounding how specific the choices were for each pigment, each touch, each effect. And this level of detail even extends to the painting's long history, right? I heard the analysis even reveals past conservation efforts.
Absolutely. Even the painting's conservation history is kind of embedded in its physical structure now, revealed through forensic analysis, microscopic examination of lead soaps.
Lead soaps, what are they?
They are chemical compounds that form as the oil binder in the paint slowly oxidizes and reacts with the lead pigments over centuries. It's a natural aging process.
Okay, and they tell a story.
They do. In this case, they revealed these opaque, white capillary traces, very fine lines. These traces confirm that the panel underwent a light solvent cleaning sometime in the mid-20th century. We think around 1952, probably at the Gemälde Gallery in Vienna.
Why clean it?
Likely to remove old, yellowed varnish layers that had darkened the painting over time, obscuring the colors. This cleaning successfully brightened the painting, brought out its original vibrancy,
Wow.
but it seems it also inadvertently slightly weakened some of the fine paint layers in the azurite areas of the sky, perhaps. Azurite can be sensitive. It highlights the delicate balance conservators always face when working with such old and fragile masterpieces.
Trying to reveal, but not remove.
Exactly. This detailed forensic work truly brings the painting's journey through time and its interactions with human care to life.
It's truly a marvel, the stories these materials themselves can tell us. Not just Bruegel's process, but the history of its care, too. Now let's talk about how Bruegel actually constructed this visual journey for us. When you first look at Hunters in the Snow, your eye is just drawn in immediately. How does he do that? How does Bruegel guide our gaze and create such a profound sense of depth in this huge winter scene? He certainly has a unique way of drawing you into the world he created.
He certainly does, and it's quite deliberate. Bruegel masterfully employed what we can identify as his signature compositional strategy. A very high horizon line combined with a relatively low vanishing point.
High horizon, low vanishing point. Okay, what does that achieve?
Well, it places you, the viewer, right on the edge of the slope in the foreground. It creates this immediate sense of immersion, almost as if you're standing right there with the hunters, looking down and out.
Yeah, you do feel perched up there.
Exactly. And from this vantage point, you are given this sweeping panoramic view into a deeply recessed valley that seems to stretch incredibly far into the distance. It's a very clever and highly effective way to draw your eye, not just across the painting, but powerfully into it. It invites you to explore its depths.
Okay, so the viewpoint is key. What else?
To further frame this expansive view, Bruegel skillfully uses elements within the painting itself as framing devices. Those four bare, stark tree trunks on the left side of the foreground.
The ones the hunters are walking past.
Yes, they act almost like theatrical curtains. They effectively frame the visual field vertically and draw your attention inwards, towards the heart of the scene in the valley.
Like stage wings.
Precisely. And in contrast to these strong vertical elements, you have the sloped path that the hunters and their dogs are following. This defines the painting's primary diagonal axis.
Right, leading down from the left.
Yes, this strong leading diagonal pulls your eye from the immediate foreground down towards the middle ground and then beyond, guiding you effortlessly through the scene.
So he's using these natural elements, trees, paths, not just as part of the landscape, but as almost a deliberate stage design, directing our perception.
Exactly that, a stage design for the eye. He also employs subtle yet incredibly effective visual rhythms to keep your gaze moving. Notice the indentations of the footprints in the fresh snow.
Yeah, they lead down the hill.
They lead you deeper into the scene, and the parallel lines created by the pack of dogs accompanying the hunters. These elements, repeated rhythmically, all pull your view deeper and deeper into the valley. It creates a sense of natural progression, of exploration within the painting.
It's a masterful use of repeating forms to create a dynamic sense of movement and depth, like little visual cues.
Very much so. Now, one of the most intriguing elements of this landscape, especially when we remember Bruegel's journey to Italy and those Alps.
Yes, the mountains in the background. They don't look like the Netherlands.
Exactly. What art historians often call its hybrid geography. Those pointed, almost jagged mountains that emerge on the opposite slope in the distance are incredibly reminiscent of Bruegel's own sketches from his arduous journey through the Alps.
So he brought them back with him in his mind.
He did, but they are not geographically accurate to the Low Countries, which are famously flat. They represent a fictional fusion, skillfully blending the flat northern plains of his homeland with the rugged, rocky terrain of the south.
Why do that? Why invent the geography?
Well, the thinking is this isn't meant to be historical reality, a specific location. Rather, this hybrid geography creates a kind of symbolic climate theater. It emphasizes the dramatic, sometimes harsh interplay between humanity and nature, rather than providing an accurate geographical depiction of one specific place. It tells a broader, more universal story about that relationship.
A climate theater. That's
Yeah.
a powerful concept. And the pond. The
Yeah.
skaters.
Yes, the frozen pond in the middle ground. It really serves as the geometric and, you could argue, the emotional center of the entire composition. Around the central point, you see the skaters circling in this beautifully rendered ellipse.
It draws the eye right there.
It does. Their movements visually reinforce the painting's internal rhythm and draw your eye to the vibrant activity happening there. It's a brilliant way to anchor the vast, expansive, almost melancholic landscape with this lively human element. It creates a harmonious and dynamic balance within the scene. A cold, stark world, yes, but absolutely full of life.
That's incredible how every single element, from the placement of a tree to the angle of a path, seems meticulously crafted to guide your eye and tell a story that goes way beyond just a simple winter scene. It's not just a snapshot. It's a carefully orchestrated visual narrative.
Beautifully put. Orchestrated is the right word.
And speaking of narrative, let's dive into those rich details and the hidden meanings maybe woven within the painting, showing how Bruegel wasn't just capturing a moment, but maybe an entire social tapestry of daily life and the struggles of his time. What clues does he embed in the scene about the people and their, well, their very human struggles?
Oh, Bruegel truly packed this painting with layers of iconographic detail, creating a really complex human society dialectic. Let's start with the most obvious figures. The hunters themselves, right there in the foreground.
Okay, the titular hunters.
If you look closely, you'll notice the lead hunter, the one closest to us, carries only a single, rather small fox slung over his shoulder.
Yeah, it doesn't look like much of a haul.
Exactly. It signifies a meager hunt, a poor catch for what was likely a long and arduous journey out in that cold. Now, in medieval moral literature, a small or unsuccessful catch was often used as a metaphor.
Metaphor for what?
For a lack of skill, or sometimes even outright failure or bad luck. In this context, it starkly highlights the harsh realities of winter. Food was scarce, and a successful hunt was absolutely critical for survival.
So their failure is significant.
Very significant. The hunters, who are presumably heads of households responsible for feeding their families, are returning weary and almost empty-handed. It's a potent visual representation of the challenging, often unforgiving conditions they face daily.
A heavy burden on their shoulders, even without much game.
Precisely. Now, shift your gaze just to the left and you see the inn sign. It reads, Dit is Goeden Hurt.
Which means?
In Flemish, it means this is good heart, or perhaps this is the Stag Inn. Interpretations vary. But the inn itself and the activity bustling around it reveals local customs, particularly winter rituals that were essential for food preservation and communal sustenance.
What kind of rituals?
You can observe figures engaged in the grim but necessary work of pig butchering, singeing the bristles off a slaughtered pig over an open fire, and likely smoking the meat afterwards. These were crucial activities for ensuring a lasting food supply through the lean winter months.
Right, preserving the meat.
It points to the ingenuity and the communal effort required for survival during this period. Every resource had to be carefully managed.
So we have the struggle of a hunt on one side, but also these communal efforts to prepare for winter's grip over by the inn. What about that frozen pond, though? It looks absolutely buzzing with life down there. What are some of the most striking games or daily activities Bruegel shows us?
Absolutely. The frozen pond is a veritable hub of activity. It's a vibrant counterpoint to the somber hunters trudging home. Bruegel masterfully depicts at least 8 distinct games and activities unfolding simultaneously down there. It's amazing.
Right. Okay, point some out.
You can spot people gracefully skating, of course. Then there are figures engaged in a game that looks like golf. It's an early form of golf or hockey, played with sticks and a ball on the ice.
Ice golf, basically.
Basically. Others are immersed in spirited sled racing. There's even what looks like a precursor to curling, with figures pushing large stones across the ice.
Curling, even back then.
Seems like it. And look closely, you'll see figures doing what looks like acrobatics, maybe a form of pole dancing on the ice using a vertical pole stuck in the ice, and other figures carrying sacks on sleds, perhaps for transport or part of another game.
It's like a winter festival.
It really is. There's also a fascinating hooded figure engaged in what was called vliegende kapron, literally flying hood, which sources say was a popular, quite dynamic ice sport or performance of the era. And touchingly, amidst all this activity, you can see children huddled around a small fire near the edge, just trying to get warm, a universal image of winter.
It really is. That pond scene is just a truly vibrant depiction of collective leisure, isn't it? A precious moment of respite and community spirit during the agricultural downtime of winter.
Exactly. When farm work stopped, people found ways to amuse themselves and be together.
And what about the mill? You mentioned that earlier.
Yes. Down in the bottom right corner, you can clearly see a watermill wheel, completely frozen solid. Its immobility is a powerful symbol of economic stagnation.
Makes sense. No water flow, no grinding grain.
Precisely. It's a clear and stark sign that when the water source freezes solid, critical economic activities literally grind to a halt. And notice the snow accumulating on the mill roof. That's not just a picturesque detail, it's also a keen observation of contemporary engineering practices, showing how buildings were designed and adapted to withstand and function during such severe winters.
Even the snow on the roof tells a story.
Yeah.
Amazing. What else should we look for?
Well, further in the distance, a prominent church tower rises above the village rooftops. It subtly signals that profound connection, deeply felt in the era, between the cycle of the seasons and divine order.
God's plan reflected in nature's cycle.
Something like that, yes. Its silhouette, subtly merging with the background haze, also softens the scale comparison between the human settlements and the vastness of nature. It gently reminds us of humanity's place within the larger cosmic scheme.
Humility before nature and God.
Perhaps. And finally, keep an eye out for the birds. There are crows flying ominously over the snow-covered landscape, and there's a solitary magpie perched on the inn sign or nearby. These are recurring motifs in Bruegel's work.
What do they usually mean?
They're often associated with fate, fortune good or bad, or sometimes seen as omens or portents. They just add another layer of symbolic meaning, a touch of unease, perhaps, to the scene.
It's just packed with detail, isn't it? Every single element seems to tell a story or have multiple meanings. So if I'm understanding this right, Bruegel is not just showing us daily life. He's highlighting the fundamental struggles and maybe even the small joys within this really challenging environment. I feel like a very humanist observation presenting this duality of work and play almost side by side on the same canvas.
That's precisely right. Bruegel's humanist observation truly shines through here. He masterfully presents that duality of work and play on the same visual plane, side by side, yet they remain subtly distinct.
How does he make them distinct? You mentioned distance earlier.
Yes, distance and scale are key. On one hand, you have the hunters. They are large, they occupy the immediate foreground. They are clearly identifiable as heads of their households, perhaps, returning empty-handed. Their meager catch is a visible sign of failure in their essential labor. It emphasizes their individual struggle, the immediate hardship they face. They are prominent, and their failure is starkly displayed for us, the viewers.
Right there in our faces almost.
Almost. Then, in stark contrast, you have the organized division of labor outside the pig butchering. That focuses on the critical task of preserving pork, ensuring a lasting food supply for the community. That's necessary, productive, communal labor.
Okay, necessary work.
And then you have the recreational figures down on the pond. They beautifully illustrate the collective leisure of the peasant community during these winter months when the agricultural cycles naturally halt. You even see figures maybe breaking ice around the frozen mill wheel, demonstrating necessary labor to try and keep things moving, or collecting overturned sleds, highlighting both work and minor misfortunes even during play.
So a mix of activities even down there.
A mix, yes. But Bruegel artfully codes the line between what he seems to portray as useless labor, like the unproductive failed hunt and necessary labor for survival, or even just leisure. He does this through both their physical relationship to the viewer, proximity and scale, and visual distance.
So the hunters are close and failing, the skaters are distant and playing.
Essentially, yes. The large, close-up hunters starkly display their failure, emphasizing their individual, palpable struggle. Yet, way down in the distant valley, the tiny clusters of people, almost insignificant in scale compared to the hunters or the landscape, seem to be enjoying an almost Epicurean moment on the ice. They're engaged in play and community, seemingly unburdened by the immediate struggle for survival that weighs so heavily on the hunters in the foreground.
That creates a powerful visual commentary, doesn't it?
It really does. A commentary on the different facets of human experience during winter, from profound hardship and failure to moments of fleeting collective joy and necessary communal effort. It's a complex, incredibly nuanced view of life, not just one thing or the other.
It's astonishing how much social commentary and everyday life Bruegel managed to pack into a single canvas. You really could spend hours just unpacking the narrative threads woven into those details, which that raises an important question. How did this painting fundamentally change art? You mentioned elevating landscape, but how did it do that? And why does it continue to resonate so powerfully? Not just through centuries, but across so many different disciplines today. It seems to pop up everywhere.
Well, Bruegel truly played a pivotal, absolutely transformative role in the history of Western art, particularly regarding landscape. Before him, as we touched on, landscape painting was largely considered a subgenre. It primarily served as background ornamentation for the main event, usually religious or historical narrative.
Just scenery.
Pretty much just scenery. Now, while earlier works like the Limburg brothers' beautiful calendar miniatures in the Treillische from the 15th century certainly showed a lineage to this calendar tradition and depicted seasonal scenes.
They were still backgrounds mostly.
Primarily, yes. Those 15th century landscapes were still essentially decorative backdrops for the figures and their activities. Bruegel's innovation was revolutionary. He made the landscape absolutely central to the composition. He turned it into a rich narrative field of equal, if not arguably greater importance than the figures themselves.
So he flipped the hierarchy.
He effectively flipped it. He reduced the human figures in many ways to what some scholars call information-carrying icons within this expansive, dominant landscape. He shifted the focus dramatically and created a whole new paradigm for landscape painting. It wasn't just background anymore, it was the subject, conveying mood, theme, even narrative.
And Hunters in the Snow was key to this shift.
Absolutely. It set an enduring standard. It fundamentally influenced subsequent generations of artists. It directly impacted the blossoming of 17th century Dutch Golden Age winter landscapes. Artists like Hendrik Everkamp, famous for his crowded ice
Oh,
scenes.
yes, I know his
Yeah.
work. Lots of tiny figures skating.
Exactly. Everkamp drew heavily from Bruegel's innovative approach to depicting frozen scenes and lively human activity within a broad landscape. You can see Bruegel's direct lineage in Everkamp's work, the high viewpoint, the detailed figures, the panoramic scope.
The influence lasted centuries then.
Oh, much longer. Even much later in 19th century Romantic art, you can discern a clear debt to Bruegel's melancholic and atmospheric depictions of snow-themed paintings. Think of Caspar David Friedrich's work.
Ah, the German Romantic painter. Lots of fog and dramatic landscapes.
Yes. His contemplative, sometimes stark winter landscapes often evoke a similar sense of human insignificance or perhaps contemplation within vast nature. Bruegel truly laid the groundwork for how future artists would approach landscape as a genre capable of profound emotional and narrative depth, capable of conveying deep philosophical ideas.
It's incredible to trace that line of influence through centuries of art history. But the painting's resonance, as you said, extends far beyond traditional art history, doesn't it? It seems to find echoes in really unexpected places, even in 20th century culture and scientific discourse.
Absolutely. The painting's resonance is truly multidisciplinary. It's quite remarkable. For example, in Andrei Tarkovsky's iconic 1972 science fiction film Solaris,
Ah, the Russian filmmaker. Deep stuff.
very deep stuff. Hunters in the Snow makes a memorable appearance in a zero-gravity scene within the space station library. Its presence there isn't accidental, it's not just decoration.
What's the effect?
It intensifies a sense of metaphysical isolation, of homesickness perhaps, of timelessness. It underscores the painting's capacity to evoke profound philosophical contemplation about humanity's place in the universe, even amidst the stars.
Wow. And poetry, too.
Yes, the renowned English poet W. H. Auden's famous 1938 poem Musée des Beaux-Arts directly references Bruegel's unique perspective on tragedy unfolding within the seemingly ordinary landscape.
About suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters. That poem.
That's the one. Auden masterfully captures how Bruegel depicts suffering or significant events like Icarus falling from the sky in another painting occurring almost unnoticed in the background of everyday life, people just getting on with things.
Right, while someone is drowning.
Exactly. Auden encodes a modern interpretation of these scenes where profound human experiences are juxtaposed with mundane activity, just as Bruegel does so powerfully in Hunters and other works.
And the climate connection, you called it a climatic documentary.
Yes, I think it functions as that in a way. A climatic documentary for Northern European painting. The weak hunt, as we discussed, can certainly be interpreted as symbolizing the protein deficiency that was likely prevalent in the pre-potato European diet, especially during the severe Little Ice Age winters. Obtaining enough sustenance was a constant struggle.
And there's actual scientific data for this.
There is supporting evidence, yes. Scientific palynological data, that's the study of ancient pollen grains preserved in sediment layers from that period, consistently shows a decrease in rye pollen in some areas around this time, meaning it suggests forced crop changes. Farmers may have had to switch to hardier but perhaps less desirable crops because the relentlessly cold climate was making traditional crops like rye harder to grow successfully. It points to real agricultural stress.
So he's not just painting beautiful art, he's giving us a glimpse into the actual environmental and dietary struggles of the time. That's a powerful way to put it, seeing it as both a work of art and a historical, even a scientific document.
Exactly. The painting shows the cycle of nature not just as something pastorally beautiful, but as something potentially catastrophic. It masterfully stages what we might call existential fragility within that triangle of human nature labor.
Existential fragility, I like that term.
Bruegel transformed the biting, harsh cold of the Little Ice Age into a kind of aesthetic distance. He blended the poignant image of the hunter's empty shoulders, symbolizing their failure in necessary labor, with the almost carefree joy of the skaters on the pond, representing collective leisure into what one scholar called a super-historical theater of daily contradictions.
A theater of contradictions.
Meaning he captured the fundamental paradoxes of human existence, struggle and joy, work and play, individual failure and community resilience that transcend any single historical moment. Its limited, cool color palette, its dramatic depth, and its richly layered narrative make it not just indispensable for studying early modern landscape painting, but also a crucial document for climate history and the burgeoning field of environmental humanities.
So it speaks to today's concerns about climate change, too.
Absolutely. It challenges us to look beyond the surface and see the deep, interconnected ecological, economic, and social systems at play then and now.
That's incredible to think that this centuries-old masterpiece is still revealing so much, not just about art, but about our planet's history and human survival. So let's bring our deep dive right into the 21st century. How is this painting, created over 450 years ago, still speaking to us today? How is it continuing to reveal new secrets and insights, perhaps through modern science and technology?
Well, the journey of hunters in the snow, through time, its provenance, is a fascinating story in itself and tells us a lot about its perceived value. From Nicholas Jongelink's home in Antwerp, where it was first displayed around 1566, it began its grand tour, so to speak.
Where did it go?
In 1594, it was presented as a diplomatic gift by the City Council of Antwerp to Archduke Ernst, who was a Habsburg prince and governor of the Netherlands.
A prestigious gift.
Very much so. After Ernst's passing the very next year, 1595, it joined the absolutely esteemed Prague collection of Emperor Rudolf II, who was a major art collector and patron of the arts.
The Imperial Collection in Prague.
Wow.
And from there, it eventually became part of the Vienna Imperial Gallery in the 1770s through the intricate web of the Habsburg dynastic chain. It's been in Vienna ever since. This long journey across royal and imperial collections speaks volumes about its enduring value and the continuous recognition of its artistic genius throughout history.
It was always considered important.
Always. The painting has also undergone various restoration processes over the centuries, which themselves reveal changes and challenges. In the 19th century, for instance, some of the panel edges were partially shaved down,
Why would they do that?
likely to fit new, more fashionable frames. It was a common, though regrettable, practice at the time that modern conservators obviously try to avoid or mitigate the effects of.
Right. Altering the art to fit the decor.
Sadly, yes. A more significant cleaning occurred in 1952 at the Gemälde Gallery in Vienna, as we mentioned, that successfully removed old, yellowed, varnished layers that had really darkened the painting.
But that's when the azurite might have been weakened. Exactly. That process, while brightening the painting, also seems to have inadvertently slightly weakened some of the fine taints in the azurite areas. It just highlights that delicate balance conservators always face, striving to restore a painting to its original vibrancy without causing any damage.
So even with the best intentions, restoration can be a really tricky balancing act. What about its current conservation? How are they protecting it now, given its age and those previous interventions?
Current conservation efforts are incredibly sophisticated and forward-thinking. The painting is now housed in a state-of-the-art, custom-built, humidity-controlled microclimate showcase.
Its own little environment.
Precisely. This allows conservators to meticulously monitor the tension created by those 19th century cradling interventions on the panel's reverse. Cradling refers to wooden battens or slats applied to the back of a panel painting historically to try and prevent warping, but paradoxically, they can also cause stress over time as the wood expands and contracts differently.
So they need careful watching.
Very careful watching. Regular infrared thermography is also employed. This technique allows them to precisely measure any minute changes in the panel's shape, any warping, ensuring its long-term stability and preservation. They can adapt the conditions to even the slightest changes in its delicate structure.
That's amazing technology. And what about understanding the painting itself? Has technology helped there too?
Oh, hugely. Beyond physical preservation, the digital revolution has truly opened new frontiers in art historical research. The InsideBruegel.net platform is a prime example of this.
InsideBruegel.net, what is it?
It's a website launched by the Kunsthistorisches Museum. It makes gigapixel images, X-ray data, infrared reflectography, IRR, and detailed pigment maps of 12 Bruegel panels publicly accessible online for free.
Wow, so anyone can access this high-tech data.
Anyone with an internet connection. It has really democratized access to information previously only available in specialized conservation labs. It allows researchers, students, art lovers, and anyone really to delve into the painting's layers with unprecedented detail from anywhere in the world. You can zoom in incredibly close.
That sounds like an art detective's dream come true, peering right beneath the surface like that. What kind of surprising new insights has this digital data actually yielded about Bruegel's technique, or maybe the painting itself?
It's truly remarkable what you can see. This rich digital data has yielded some really surprising new insights into Bruegel's actual brushwork, his technique. For instance, zooming right in, it's revealed how Bruegel achieved the distinctive panther mane fur texture of the hunter's cloaks
How did he do it?
with single, swift, incredibly confident brushstrokes, almost calligraphic. It's a testament to his incredible speed and artistic assurance. Just whisk.
Amazing control.
Amazing control. And in stark contrast for the smaller figures way down in the distance, he used thinned paint in a technique called glazing, or lasur in German, applying thin, almost transparent layers to create a more ethereal, distant effect that makes them recede visually into the atmosphere.
Different techniques for different scales and effects.
Precisely. Another fascinating discovery from this digital analysis is that the upper right corner of the panel was originally about 3 to 4 centimeters higher than it is now.
It was cut down.
It seems so. It was likely cut perhaps in the 17th century, maybe to ensure compatibility with a particular piece of furniture or to fit new display spaces. It's another small alteration in its very long history, showing again how the physical demands of display could influence the object itself over time.
Even masterpieces weren't always treated with kid gloves back then.
Not always, no. And the scholarly debates continue, fueled by this new data too. There's still lively discussion about Bruegel's lost panels from the Months series, which ones are missing, its likely representations of March, April, and September, October.
So, spring and early autumn.
Probably. This keeps alive the fundamental question. Did Bruegel originally intend a 6-panel double-month series, combining 2 months per panel? Or was he aiming for a full, grand 12-month cycle? We still don't know for sure.
Mystery continues.
It does. This ongoing research, especially armed with current technological tools, uncovering Bruegel's brush-tip thought speed, finding these subtle alterations in composition. It truly proves that this centuries-old painting still has new things to say. It continues to be a source of active discovery and fascinating new knowledge.
What an incredible journey we've taken, really, through this single painting. From its just stunning artistic brilliance and its precise historical context, to the technical mastery involved in its creation, and finally, its profound and enduring legacy. Hunters in the Snow truly stands as a testament to art's ability to transcend time.
It really does.
We've seen how it's not just a visual poem of winter, though it is that too, but also a vital historical record, chronicling that existential fragility, as you put it, at the intersection of humanity, nature, and labor during a really challenging period in European history.
Indeed. Hunters in the Snow continues to invite us, even today, to take a deeper look into 16th century Europe's intricate social, climatic, and aesthetic layers. And if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yes.
this painting challenges us to see everyday life then and now, not as static or isolated, but as an integral part of vast interconnected systems, ecological systems, powerful economic forces, complex social structures.
Everything's connected.
Everything is connected. It's a profound reminder that even the most seemingly mundane actions or observations are interwoven with larger, often invisible threads of influence and consequence.
Absolutely. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Think about how this single piece of art, created centuries ago by Peter Bruegel the Elder, can offer such profound insights into climate, into society, into the human condition itself. It truly invites us to look for these surprising connections in the art and the world around us every single day. What other masterpieces, or maybe even everyday objects, might hold such hidden depths, just waiting for a deep dive?
It encourages curiosity.
It really does. We encourage you to seek out those connections in your own life and in the art you encounter. Thanks for diving deep with us today.